Hello and welcome back. We're already at part 15 of our series covering the best episodes of Tales from the Crypt. Since we're now down to the last third of episodes, I'll be featuring only 2 episodes per video. Sooner or later, I'm going to shift from the best episodes to the worst, most of which will come from the 7th season. So this is more middle-of-the-road episodes than the best, but I also have plans for more content featuring the Crypt Keeper once this main series is completed. It might not come as a shock, but part 20 will be the last of the best of the best. Even with the best episodes soon behind us, there's still something to enjoy in the 7th season. It's just a matter of perspective. With that out of the way, let's get into the spooky stories. Our first story is titled Judy, You're Not Yourself Today, from Season 2, Episode 11, originally airing on June 12, 1990. Our story begins in a quiet suburban home, a home that seems calm and normal, but inside Donald, a man obsessed with firearms, stands in the living room, a shotgun in his hands, talking to himself. His wife Judy asks who he's talking to. Donald pops his head around the corner and says nobody, before joining her at the table. They have a short conversation, light and familiar, before the doorbell rings. Judy looks out the window and says it's a solicitor. Donald narrows his eyes, goes to the door, shotgun in hand, to greet the man at the doorstep. The door swings open to reveal him nervously holding a clipboard, a petition in his hands, seeking signatures for gun control. The visitor is polite and earnest, trying to explain the petition. Donald laughs, lifting the shotgun in a casual but deliberate gesture aimed at the man's chest. The volunteer flinches. Donald asks him to repeat what the petition is for. Words fail him. Judy mutters apologies, telling the man Donald can get a bit carried away. The man says this is exactly why gun control is needed. Donald laughs and points the gun at Judy, pulling the trigger. A metallic click makes her jump. She loses her temper, yelling at Donald to get inside, before shooing the man away and closing the door. The two lightly argue inside, Judy saying that she's getting wrinkles from stress as she looks in the mirror, and that Donald pointing a shotgun at her isn't helping. Donald, dismissive, leaves for the gun club, and Judy is left alone. She paces the house, drinking water, checking her reflection, worried about the fine lines showing on her face. Suddenly, a knock at the door. She opens it to find an elderly woman carrying a leather briefcase. Smiling warmly, she introduces herself as a cosmetics representative, offering free consultations and rare products. The woman compliments Judy's skin, then points out subtle imperfections. She opens the briefcase and shows her a glowing pendant, saying it can enhance beauty and youth. Intrigued, Judy accepts. The moment the pendant touches her, green light glows. Donald returns home to find the elderly woman claiming to be Judy, speaking with her voice, recounting memories only Judy could know. Judy, trapped in the witch's body, tries to speak, but her voice is weak. He is confused and alarmed, but the older woman convinces him. The phone ringing interrupts their conversation. It's Donald's friend, saying that Judy isn't seeming like herself. He's seen her at the train station bar, and when he tried to talk to her, she told him to go to hell. Donald, wanting to get to the bottom of this, tricks Judy in the old woman's body, locking her in the closet. He loads a handgun before rushing off to the train station. At the train station, Donald sees Judy. He looks at her, but she walks right past him, as if she doesn't even know who he is. Finally fully convinced, Donald comes up with a plan on the fly, making up a story about her having cancer and not to run off to Vegas, and to spend her last few weeks with him instead. The witch, taken aback, falls for the ruse hook, line, and sinker. She causes the necklace to glow and the two seemingly swap places once again. In a flash, Judy comes to, laying on the floor of the train station. Donald gets her to her feet and the two rush home, finding the old witch still locked in the closet. Donald racks the slide on his gun and the complaining in the closet stops. Donald says that she's not so tough. The witch growls and Donald fires off multiple pot shots, destroying a bunch of figurines and turning their house into Swiss cheese. A few bullets find their way through the door, and the witch stumbles out and collapses dead to the floor. After it's over, Donald exclaims how fantastic and thrilling it was as he dances around the living room.
That was great! What a rush! Blam, blam, blam! Ah, I blew her away.
They bury the witch's lifeless body in the basement. Judy places the necklace back into the bedroom safe. Her eyes lingered on the green gem. Donald catches her eyeing it and asks what she's up to. She comments how beautiful the necklace is, and inquires if they truly have to keep it locked away in the safe. Donald says they can't get rid of it due to it being evidence, but reveals that he tried melting and crushing it, but remarks that it can't seem to be destroyed. Judy asks if they can hang it somewhere in the house so they can look at it all the time. Donald refuses, closing the safe and reminding her what the necklace did, and that they have a witch buried in their basement. 3 months pass. Curiosity winning over her better judgment, one night she sneaks into the safe and puts on the pendant. The green glow returns and she is magically transported back into the old woman's body. Meanwhile, downstairs, Donald goes to get a glass of milk and is totally unaware of the situation. The decayed body of the witch jump scares him. She reaches out towards him, whimpering for help. Donald stumbles around the house as he searches for a gun, desperately trying to find a way to put down the reanimated witch. While this happens, the original Judy approaches, asking why he's trying to kill her. Confused and overwhelmed, Donald throws her a set of keys, asking her to fetch the Jaguar. The original Judy looks confused, as they don't even own a Jaguar. The witch moves, revealing herself, and Donald opens fire. Her dying words trigger one more body swap, leaving Judy in the wounded body. Donald holds her in his arms as she slowly dies, and the screen fades to black. This episode was based on a story from the comic Tales from the Crypt number 25. The TV adaptation was written by Scott Nimmerfro, who wrote and produced many episodes of the series. The most recognizable face of the episode is Carol Kane, who plays Judy. She is known for movies like The Princess Bride and Scrooged, but perhaps most famously for her role as Grandma Addams in 1993's Addams Family Values. The funny thing is, for her role in Addams Family Values, Kane was put into heavy prosthetics to make her look much older, even though she was the youngest adult actor on set, aside from Joan Cusack, who played Debbie. Also appearing in this episode is Frances Bay, who plays the Witch in Red. Bay starred in many films, but most fans know her from Happy Gilmore, where she played Happy's loving grandmother. Donald was played by Brian Kerwin, who appeared in movies like 27 Dresses and is perhaps best known for playing Brian Powell, Robin Williams' loving and understanding father in the 1996 comedy movie Jack. Overall, the episode is fun and filled with darkly comedic moments. Regardless of its IMDb ranking, fans generally have a positive reception, mainly because of Carol Kane and the grimly funny gun antics of Brian Kerwin as Donald. His over-the-top performance makes the episode even more enjoyable. Our next story is titled This'll Kill Ya, from Season 4, Episode 2, originally airing on June 27, 1992. Our story begins with a man named George dragging a dead body into a police station. He says that he's a dead man walking, and that the corpse is the man who killed him. The police draw their weapons, and like a Tarantino movie, we go back in time to see how we got to this point. We are taken back to a few days earlier, in a high-tech research lab. Bright, sterile, humming with machines, and the quiet tension of ambitious scientists. At the center is George Gatlin, a bright man overflowing with bravado. He looks over a female scientist named Sophie, kicking himself for letting her get away. She jokingly retorts that he didn't let her do anything and that she was, in fact, the one who kicked him to the curb. Sophie continues to look for George's insulin. She finds it at the back of the cooler, asking why he stuck it in the cooler with H-cell 24. Joking that one day they will mix it up and inject a lab rat with his insulin by mistake. George jokes that it would just make the rats hungry for chocolate. George asks Sophie to administer his medicine, as he has a fear of needles, but jokes that he likes having Sophie wait on him. A man named Pack enters the room in a storm of anger, asking why George gave an interview to the press without consulting them first. The article is a puff piece boasting that their drug H-cell 24 will be a bona fide cure-all and will be safe to use and available soon. Both Sophie and Pack lay into George, saying that the drug hasn't even gone to human trials yet, and that the article could only be true if they could work out the kink in the drug that makes it continue to eat away healthy cells. after it's done hunting and destroying the damaged and diseased ones. George just smiles as Pack continues on that it would likely kill a person if they were injected with the current formula. George says that the press will get them the funding they desperately need to continue the research. Pack says that media stunts like this show that George has lost sight of the reason they decided to make the drug in the first place, yelling that it isn't about money or a race to the bank. The two get into a heated conversation, with Sophie in the middle trying to keep the peace. George shuts down the argument, telling Pack that his tenure isn't based on how good of a scientist he is, but rather that George stuck his neck out for him over the project, and that he's doing what's needed to ensure they all still have jobs and can deliver on the drug they set out to create, and that if he wants to make it a reality, he'll shut up and do his job. Pack, rightfully feeling disrespected, storms out of the lab. We flash forward to see Sophie tying one on at the bar, clearly stressed over the current climate of the lab. George shows up and kisses her on the cheek but is pushed away, with her saying that she came there for a bit of peace. George buys them both a drink, asking if she's really still mad at him, and that he thought she would be more on his side. She asks if he's serious or really that stupid, reminding him of the last time he pulled a media stunt like this. He told a venture capitalist that the drug was patented. George says that it was, but Sophie reminds him that it happened 6 months after the fact, saying that his antics keep putting the project in jeopardy. George mistakes her passion for the project as passion for him and flirts, trying to get her back to his place. She says the idea of being intimate with him after what he pulled makes her sick, before downing another drink. But, of course, being Tales from the Crypt, the two sleep together anyway. After some post-nut clarity, Sophie kicks George out, telling him to keep their involvement with each other a secret from Pack, as it could harm their overall partnership on the project. She also tells George that the infighting with Pack is only slowing their progress down, and that George should be more understanding. George slightly patronizes her over her words before leaving. The next morning, George apologizes to Pack, offering him a cup of coffee as a peace offering. Pack, knowing George, asks what his endgame is, knowing that he never says sorry unless it's to get something. But George is genuinely apologizing, and Pack accepts. The two part on good terms as George goes to sit down at his desk. Pack goes to put his lunch in the fridge, and George asks him to get his insulin. Pack jokes that he's not his nurse before blindly grabbing a vial and syringe. Sophie takes it from him and goes to administer the medication. She injects him, and Pack calls out for her to stop, saying that it's the wrong drug. That the experimental drug they're working on was on the same shelf as the insulin, but it's too late. Sophie has already injected the H-cell 24 into George's arm. George screams at them to inject him with something to turn the cell-seeking drug off. Pack and Sophie shout back that this is what they were trying to tell him yesterday, that the drug isn't ready, and they can't turn it off, and that such a breakthrough is at least 6 months away. George understandably freaks out, screaming at them for essentially killing him. George passes out and comes to on the floor near his desk, with Sophie at his side. George asks what's going to happen to him. Sophie says that the H cell will break down bad cells in his body first, rapidly followed by the healthy ones. Pack steps in and says that the current version of the antidote would cause cellular death and would kill him outright. George asks how long he has left before the H cell starts killing him. Pack says that he likely has only a few hours left. George starts reeling, thinking about what the drug is currently doing to him. Sophie yells his name to snap him back to reality. George leaves the lab in a cold sweat, wandering the streets and ending up at the local bar. There he has vivid hallucinations, seeing a man sitting at the bar with blisters and tumors on his face, and in a snap the man returns to normal. The bartender notices that George is having a rough time and asks if he wants another drink. George says that he really just came in to use their phone to call Sophie, but she's not answering. The bartender says that she and Pack were just in the bar a few hours ago, drinking in a booth and seemingly celebrating something. George, thinking that they found a cure, goes to Sophie's apartment. When George walks in, Sophie is nowhere to be found. The phone rings as George calls out her name. The answering machine picks up, and it's Pack, saying that he feels guilty as hell for messing with George's insulin, going on to say that Sophie was right that he likely deserves it, but that he's still feeling awful and that she should meet him at the lab, saying that he has something he needs to show her. George, hearing this message, lets it all sink in. When presented with the evidence, he determines that they infected him with the H-cell drug on purpose. George goes to the lab to confront Pack, hitting him over the head with a baseball bat. Pack lays on the floor disoriented, telling George it's not what he thinks. George goes over to the lab fridge, fills a syringe with a mixture of H-cell and insulin, and forcefully injects Pack, telling him that he can play the same game. The mixture seemingly kills Pack nearly instantly. We flash back to the police station, where George finishes the story to the police. They are so taken aback by the story that they holster their weapons. George says that shooting him now would be a mercy, as he's likely riddled with tumors and is minutes from dying anyway. Sophie enters the station in horror, looking down at Pack's lifeless body. She looks up at George, asking what he's done. George remarks that he only returned the favor. Sophie comes clean in front of the police, telling George that he's not dying, that they doctored his insulin with something to make him feel slightly sick as a way of teaching him a lesson, and that he was never injected with H-cell. She goes on to say that if he had talked to Pack before attacking him, he would have told him that the H-cell problem was solved, and that the drug is now stable and viable. They only wanted to teach him a cruel lesson before revealing the truth. George, lost, stares into the camera as the screen fades to black. This episode was based on a story from Crime Suspense Stories number 23. The basic premise remains the same, but like many adaptations, it was updated to fit the time it was produced. A prank that goes too far and leads to a grim fate for everyone involved. The lab and experimental drug are creations of the TV show. Dylan McDermott, who plays George, is the standout character of the episode. He went on to play many major roles, but horror fans know him best from his appearances on American Horror Story. Even though this episode was filmed in 1992, McDermott strangely looks nearly identical 34 years later. Clevin Little, who played Pack, is best known for his role as Sheriff Bart in Blazing Saddles. He won a Tony Award for his Broadway work and a Primetime Emmy Award later in his career. Also starring is Sonia Braga as Sophie, who appeared in many TV shows, including Warehouse 13 and Luke Cage. At the time of release, fans ranked the episode unfavorably, mainly due to its lack of the dark humor or suspense that made the anthology famous. However, in more recent years, it has been seen more favorably, appreciated mainly for its acting and unique premise, though it rarely appears in fan rankings of the series' best installments. But that's all I have for this one. I want to thank our channel members, and thank you all for watching. Take care, stay safe, have a great week, and we'll see you in the next one.